Let me show you something about AI that almost nobody talks about. Every few weeks, a model gets better. You've seen the posts, benchmarks, screenshots, arguments, and that's fine. That's real. But I want to be honest with you. That's the layer everyone watches, and it's the layer that decides the least. The stuff that actually decides how this plays out isn't in a model card. It's in the contracts. And once you see them, you can't unsee the shape of this industry. So start with a simple question. What is a model company actually? You probably picture a building full of machines, racks, cables, lights. Almost none of them own that. Think about that for a second. The companies building the most expensive software in history do not own the computers it runs on. They rent them on multi-year terms at a scale enterprise software has simply never seen before. And here's why that matters to you. When rent is the single biggest line in your business, the person who writes the lease has more say in how things end than the person who writes the model. That's not a criticism of anyone. It's just the shape of it. For years, the clearest example of this was one relationship. One model company, one cloud, exclusive. Then, across two announcements, that whole arrangement got taken apart and rebuilt. In October 2025, OpenAI recapitalized. Microsoft's stake settled around 27%. OpenAI committed to spend $250 billion on Azure. And Microsoft's right of first refusal to be OpenAI's compute provider, gone. Then, on the 27th of April 2026, the next phase. Exclusivity, gone. Microsoft's license runs to 2032, but it is no longer exclusive. OpenAI can serve its products on any cloud. And that is how it got reported. Openness. Independence. A breakup almost. But look at what stayed. Azure is still the primary cloud. Products still ship there first. And OpenAI still pays Microsoft a share of revenue, all the way to 2030. So read those two together, slowly. Exclusivity ended. And the money kept flowing. The lock didn't disappear. It just changed shape. From a legal restriction into a financial one. And if you think that's a one-off, it happened again a week earlier. On the 20th, Amazon and Anthropic expanded their deal. $5 billion of new equity. Up to $20 billion more tied to milestones. And Anthropic committing to spend $100 billion on AWS over the next decade. Against up to 5 gigawatts of Amazon's own Trainium chips. Anthropic also runs on Google's TPUs from a separate deal. Roughly 1 million of them. Now, you'd call that multi-cloud, right? Spread the risk, stay flexible. But I don't think that's what happened. You don't escape a landlord by signing a longer lease with 2 of them. Okay, so the clouds have the leverage. That's the story, isn't it? Not quite. Stay with me, because the clouds rent too. In 2026, nvidia still supplies somewhere in the region of 80% of data center AI accelerators, which puts every hyperscaler in a strange position. They are simultaneously NVIDIA's biggest customers and its most motivated competitors. That's why Google built TPUs, why Amazon built Trainium, why Microsoft has Maya and Meta has MTIA. Custom silicon is still the minority, but it's growing several times faster than the merchant GPUs. And that tells you everything. When your biggest customers start building your product themselves, what you're selling isn't a component, it's a choke point. And underneath the chips, the fabs, where there are fewer players still. So let me answer the question I started with. Who owns the AI stack? Nobody does. Model companies rent compute, clouds rent silicon, silicon rents fabrication. It looks like an industry of rivals. It's a chain of tenants. And the money moves down the chain, not up it. Which finally brings this back to you. If you're building on somebody's API, your cost curve is being set several layers below you, by contracts you'll never read, between companies you've never met. You can't negotiate that. You can't forecast it from outside. So the only real defense is the one thing you do control. How expensive it is for you to leave. That's it. That's the whole strategy. Portability. Not because anyone will treat you badly, but because in a stack made entirely of leases, the only one with leverage is the one who can walk. The models will keep getting better. They were never the variable that decided this. Save this before it's obvious.